He parks the car with automatic precision, hands steady on the wheel, his expression too neutral for someone who knows every street of that city the way one knows their own history. And before even turning off the engine, he steps fully into the role he decided to wear that day. Simple clothes, contained posture, no words beyond what's necessary. Because in the front seat he owns nothing but silence, while in the back seat she gets in adjusting her dress, checking her reflection in the tinted glass, self-assured like someone who believes the entire world responds to her movements. And the simple act of closing the door already creates the distance he came to measure. The car starts moving and the sound of her heels echoes against the floor as she crosses her legs with studied ease, comments about the expensive restaurant they're going to, mentions that the place fits better with people who know how to be seen, and she doesn't even glance in his direction. Not out of courtesy or conscious disdain, but out of habit, as if the driver's presence were just another part of the machine, and that absence of recognition weighs more than any direct offense, because it doesn't require intent to hurt. At the traffic light, she fixes her hair again, leans forward just enough to check her reflection in the rearview mirror, smiles at herself, and laughs softly as she remembers a comment she received earlier, saying she still knows how to draw attention when she wants to. That all it takes is entering a room to feel the looks, and she says it with easy pride, too comfortable, like someone who doesn't imagine anyone is listening carefully, because for her, listening is a privilege reserved for those who matter. Her phone vibrates and she answers on speaker without asking. The conversation starts out trivial, but quickly takes on intimate tones, veiled compliments, double-meaning jokes, comparisons that don't name names but build clear hierarchies, and he keeps driving, eyes fixed on the road, while each word occupies a space that shouldn't exist, not because of explicit betrayal, but because of the ease with which she offers herself as a spectacle, certain that no one there has the right to react. At a certain point, she refers to the driver in the third person, like someone pointing out a functional object, asks him to speed up a little, says she's in a hurry, and goes back to the call laughing, commenting that some people exist only to serve. A sentence said without anger, without apparent malice, just as a practical observation, and that's when something shifts inside him. Not an urge to confront, but the cold realization that the test was never about romantic fidelity, but about basic humanity. He stays silent because interrupting would break the experiment, and revealing himself now would allow her to adjust the mask. And as the car moves forward, the discomfort isn't in what she does, but in the calm with which she does it. Confident that no boundary will be crossed because no one there is seen as an equal. And the inevitable question forms in the stuffy space of the vehicle, too heavy to be spoken out loud. If you were in this front seat, invisible and hearing everything, how long would you pretend it isn't about you? The route continues and traffic thickens, but inside the car, time seems suspended in an artificial comfort that only exists when someone believes they are not being evaluated. And she keeps talking, now about people she knows, about men who know their own worth, about how exhausting it is to deal with those who depend too much. All said with rehearsed lightness, as if she were just organizing the world into simple categories, while he realizes that each classification strips away a little more empathy, and there's no need for exaggeration when contempt is routine. She ends the call smiling, puts her phone away and crosses her arms, pleased with her own presence, and comments to herself that she likes to provoke, that it keeps things interesting, that power lies in being desired without having to choose, and he listens without reacting. Because the discomfort now doesn't come from sensuality, but from the logic behind it. From the way desire becomes a tool to place oneself above, never beside, and his silence becomes a mirror she doesn't notice. Stopping again at a red light, she leans slightly out the window for a second, exchanges a quick look with someone on the sidewalk, receives a smile back and laughs, satisfied, as if she had confirmed something essential about herself, and when she sits back, comments casually that it's good to know she still has an effect, that it gives her security. And in that moment he understands that this isn't about potential infidelity, but about constant validation, a consumption of attention that doesn't consider the human cost to those around her. She asks for water, extends her hand without looking, and when he hands her the bottle, there's no thank you, just the natural continuation of comfort, as if the gesture were automatic. And it's in this succession of small absences that the test deepens, because there's no clear villainy, just an accumulation of choices that reveal how someone behaves when they believe no one there truly matters. The car keeps going, the restaurant draws closer, and he feels the decision gain weight, not as anger, but as clarity, because listening to everything without interrupting wasn't passivity, it was observation. And every word she said built an image impossible to ignore afterward, and as he parks, she composes herself, shifts her tone, adjusts her posture, ready for a world that recognizes value only when it's displayed, unaware that the real judgment has already happened in silence. Before getting out, she comments distractedly that she likes discreet men who don't make a scene, who know their place, and he answers only with a short, controlled, "Yes, ma'am," loaded with a meaning she doesn't hear. And when the door closes, he remains seated for one extra second, feeling the exact weight of what was revealed. Because now it's no longer about curiosity, but about choice, and the question that remains doesn't seek a comfortable answer. How many times have you confused freedom with permission to diminish those too close to be seen? He stays in the car, watching her reflection in the rearview mirror as she walks toward the brightly lit entrance. Confident posture, steady steps, like someone who never had to ask where her comfort comes from. And in that moment, there's no sharp pain or shock, just a slow, definitive understanding that everything that needed to be heard has already been said. Not in confession, but in habit. And that weighs more because it can't be fixed with a rehearsed apology. The engine stays on for a few more seconds, long enough for him to realize the test has reached the exact point where revealing the truth would be too easy, almost unfair, because giving her the chance to adjust her narrative now would allow the charm to survive the evidence. And he didn't come seeking confrontation or redemption. He came seeking clarity, and clarity doesn't shout. It simply asserts itself with cold certainty. He turns off the car, steps out, hands the keys to the valet without explanation, and as he walks in the opposite direction, he feels something rare settle in his chest, not wounded pride or a desire for revenge, but intact self-respect, because there is no greater humiliation than begging to be seen by someone who feels comfortable reducing others to the role they occupy, and that is not something he's willing to do. Inside the restaurant, she laughs loudly at a well-placed table, comments about the late arrival of the driver, minimizes the importance, and continues the night as if nothing happened, unaware that the access she always considered guaranteed has already begun to close. Not through theatrical punishment, but through natural, silent, definitive consequence, because some doors don't close with noise, they simply stop opening. Hours later, when his message doesn't come, when the call goes to voicemail, when comfort starts to fail, she feels for the first time a strange unease. Not guilt, but a diffuse loss, like someone who realizes too late they treated a person as scenery rather than presence, and that realization arrives without warning, without audience, without room for negotiation. He in turn doesn't write, doesn't explain, doesn't accuse, because some truths don't need to be announced to exist. And by choosing silence, he isn't running away, he is concluding, aware that character isn't tested by beautiful words, but by how someone acts when they believe no one relevant is watching. And the question that remains echoing, heavy as consequence, isn't comfortable or abstract. If someone's value disappears when you think they have no power at all, what does that reveal about your own value? The meeting happens days later, not because of his insistence, but because the silence starts to bother her more than any argument. And when she finally sees him, simple as always, without the car, without the driver role, without the setting that reassured her, something inside her comes undone. Because for the first time, control isn't on the side she knows, and his gaze asks for nothing, demands nothing. It only observes with the same precision with which it listened throughout that drive. She speaks first, tries to laugh, tries to normalize it, frames his disappearance as exaggeration, as unnecessary drama, and only then does he say who he is. Not as a theatrical reveal, but as an objective fact, brief, irrefutable. And the change on her face doesn't come from immediate financial loss, but from the brutal understanding that she treated as invisible someone who was never small, and that the test didn't expose desire, it exposed moral hierarchy. There are no shouts, no direct accusations, because he doesn't need to list what he heard. She already knows. Every word now returns with its own weight, and when she tries to justify herself saying it was a joke, that it never meant anything, he simply listens, the same way he listened in the car, and that silent mirroring is what breaks the spell, because for the first time she sees herself speaking to someone who doesn't need her. He stands up before the apology can fully take shape, not out of cruelty, but out of coherence, because dignity doesn't negotiate attention or accept being rediscovered only when power changes sides. And as he walks away, he leaves behind not a humiliated woman, but someone confronted with her own logic, forced to face the emptiness she mistook for freedom. The real impact doesn't come that day, but in the days that follow, when invitations stop, when privileges evaporate without explanation, when the feeling of being desired no longer sustains identity, and she realizes too late that seduction doesn't replace character, nor does it validate someone who only feels whole when standing above someone else. And this fall isn't divine punishment, it's human consequence. He moves on without spectacle, without exposure, because self-respect doesn't need an audience. And the greatest victory isn't having been desired, but choosing not to remain where it was convenient to be blind. And in the end, when everything settles, the story leaves an unavoidable discomfort for those watching from the outside, because it doesn't accuse only her. It challenges the observer. If you witnessed every silence, every gesture, every normalized contempt, not as a distant reader, but as someone seated in that car, the final question can't be avoided. When no one you consider important is watching, who do you allow yourself to be? If this story reached you, if something inside shifted, subscribe now, because not every test of character comes with a warning, and not every fall happens in public. For man looks at what is before his eyes, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7.